is Dolynny TV, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another edition, some Sunday edition of Edmonton Oilers discussion here on the channel this afternoon. Let me tell you, you know what? There's been a ton of little things cropping up over the past few days, right? Obviously, if you follow Oilers Nation, they've had a couple articles out that have linked back to guys we've talked about or situations we've talked about. And both situations we've talked about as of the past few weeks here is the situation with young defenders and the Bakersfield Condors. And I don't know if you saw their article about Philip Berglund. I still haven't been able to find anything super official on that, so that's why we haven't talked about that yet. But their article today about Theodor Lennström links back to a Swedish hockey outlet sports page off of Expressen.se that links to a story that the Oilers are leaning towards looking at Theodor Lennström as an option on the left-hand side when it comes to the defense. Now, this is, from what I can figure out of Lennström's play and kind of where he fits based on the Swedish article and the Oilers Nation article, is it simply put that he kind of fits a role that it's just depth, straight up. But he's a lesser Joel Persson, right? Within the organization, should the Oilers be bringing him into the fold, he's viewed as a lesser Joel Persson from the two different writing articles between Oilers Nation and the Expressen.se article. So that's kind of the deal, right? Is it looks like he's just pure depth, and that's something we've talked about, right? Is the farm has this weird situation going on next year. If you go over to Cap Friendly, I invite you to do that sometime during this video. Go to the Edmonton Oilers. Yes, we're capped out at 50 contracts. Doesn't mean we can't sign for next year. But you look at it this way, right? Brandon Manning off the farm next year. That's the left-hand D. You've got Broberg, who will be in Sweden next year. That's off the farm left-hand D. Bouchard, who knows? Hopefully NHL. We got a long way to go on that one. Dmitry Samorukov, lefty, yes. Logan Day, he's a lefty, I believe. But you know what? RFA next year. Did he impress enough to get a second NHL contract? Who knows? William Legason, lefty, but will he be our seventh defenseman? Keegan Lowe, he'll most likely be back. So that kind of leaves you open to this whole situation where you can have an extra left-hand D on the farm. That's why you kind of bring in Thomas Lennström. Now, who the heck is Thomas Lennström? Well, let me bring up a little graphic there. That's going to be his stats for you. These are Thomas Lennström's stats. He came up in the exact same development program, the AIK development program that Philip Broberg's come up in. All right, so you know a little bit about that one. 7 points in 8 games in 14-15 in the Junior 20 program there, which is, I believe, Junior A in Sweden. Then you've got AIK. He had 1 assist in 33 games played there. He is a defenseman, so these stats aren't going to be eye-catching. Let's be serious. And then he played for BIK Karlskoga. I know I'm saying that wrong. Karlskoga probably is how it's said. I'm not 100% sure. We'll figure out. Somebody will come along and correct me on this after the video's done, so we don't have to worry too much about getting the pronunciations right at this point. And that's in the Alsvexan. Why am I even bothering? All right, 12 points, then 26 points the next year. Then made the full-time jump to the Swedish Elite League at 16 points in 47 games with Farjestad, and then 15 points, 47 games. If that name sounds familiar, that's where Joakim Nygard's out of, all right? That's where we got Joakim Nygard from last year. And then for Olanda, so far this year, he played 15 points in 31 games played. Not really a goal scorer from the back end. That's fine. That's dandy. That's all good. What you need to know about Theodor Lennström is the fact that he has a birthday coming up. You know what? August birthday in 1994. So that means he'll be 26 this year. He'll be able to sign that entry-level deal similar to what I believe Joakim Nygard did. He is born in Stockholm, Sweden, and he is a 6'1", 190-pound left-hand defender. So that's kind of where you need to know with his situation is he's an interesting player for sure. And then you've got the other side too, the playoff side to this. He's kind of played several playoff games. In fact, he's been in some kind of playoff situation since the 14-15 season. So this guy is a guy that has played more hockey than the regular season stats would show you, which means he should be able to hold up if the idea is to send him to Bakersfield over the course of an entire year, right? That's kind of always the question with some of these guys that come over is they might play less games and then all of a sudden they either get into the 68 or 82 game grind of the NHL and AHL, and then it wears some of them down. Like obviously I don't know if you can say that for Joakim Nygard, but right, the level of physicality, the level of play, it's harder on the guys that aren't used to that, and if they're not used to that, that does cause injury. But you know what, Theodor Lennström looks to be pretty much playing several regular seasons, right? 47 back-to-back years in the SHL, 48 in the LXFAN, and then 50 the year before. So there's really not looking to be any history of injury or significant injury, I guess I should say, right there with him. And realistically, guys, to add a guy on a probably 925K entry-level deal for next year to play him in the AHL at most, if he impresses, bring him up to the NHL, that's fine and dandy. Because you look at the NHL roster, right? What do we got on the left side? We've got Darnell Nurse. We've got Oscar Klefbom. We've got Caleb Jones. Obviously, yes, I said William Lagesson, right? There's a lot of guys there, and technically speaking, Chris Russell as well, depending on what happens. So, interesting to note, of course, I think Oilers Nation noted the dipping of Ken Holland back into the European free agent pool. That's the interesting side. Now, nothing is official here. This is all just a guy we're taking a look at, supposedly, according to the Swedish media. And the side, too, is nothing can be worked out between Mr. Lennström and Ken Holland before there's a transfer availability with the SHL and NHL. I believe that happens. Same thing on sometime in June or July. I can't remember exactly when it happens, but that's the other side too. The transfer period hasn't opened up due to this whole pandemic situation going out our front doors. So right now, another wait and see, but that's the other side. Remember that Miguel Grigorenko, I believe, is the name we heard signing with the Columbus Blue Jackets. That signing was voided after the fact that he needs to be signed on July 1st or whenever free agency is deemed open by the NHL. So this is kind of where it all goes, right? There's several European stuff. I don't understand it. That's one thing, if I ever get full-time ability to do YouTube, maybe that's something I have to take a look at into learning, is how every league transfers to the NHL, the AHL, that situation, kind of the rules governing free agency between the KHL and the NHL. But again, just, you know what, at least this, like, obviously, like I said, with Philip Berglund stuff, seen one article, but I can't find the link back, the original thing linking it. That's tough. But when there's something over in Sweden, at least we can talk about it and discuss it, so that's always good. That's one principle of journalism, ladies and gentlemen. You always want to have two sources to confirm what you're about to say. So this one, go to expressen.se, pardon me, and of course Oilers Nation, and you'll be able to get a kind of wrap up on Thomas Lennström from the Swedish perspective and Thomas Lennström from an Oilers blog nation kind of situation as well, guys. So, what does this mean? What does it mean, right? Obviously, you know what? Similar situation too. As I said, if he's a lesser Joel Persson, we saw what happened with Joel Persson. He ended up getting traded off to the Anaheim Ducks for an ECHL level goaltender, so that was the interesting case there. But right, is these guys are kind of invaluable within your system because they can get you some kind of return. And I think there was a pick involved with the Joel Persson trade as well, if I remember correct. But right, if there's a situation in which you can let them go for something in return, that's not a bad thing. And especially, right, if you're going to run that 47 to 50 contract cap, you kind of look at it that way, right? Is you do have to move some of these guys at the deadline, or you just have to let them walk in the off season. And you see what Ken Holland did there, is got a goaltender in the situation that could potentially be a fill-in next year if we decide to choose for him. So if this guy's a lesser Joel Persson, he fills that need in Bakersfield that we've talked about. Thomas Lennström, or Theodor Lennström, pardon me. Have I been saying Thomas Lennström this whole time? Brutal. I'm out of practice. Theodor Lennström fills that role. And then, of course, if you need to trade him for something, you do have that flexibility, because then you'll kind of have your Bakersfield Condors team figured out. And if he fits, he fits. If he doesn't, bing, bang, boom, you get something else. Guys, I'm Tyson. This is Dolynny TV. What I need you to do is hit that like button because we at least get some views and some people in here and some people discussing this news on the channel. We can't have nobody discussing the news today on Dolynny TV. I am up on out of here.